Hello, and welcome to The Hardest Part, the show that unravels the stories behind the most challenging songs ever written. I'm Kieron Banerji, and on this episode, I'm joined by Sophie Jamieson. Now, we sat down in the studio to talk about her song, How Do You Want to Be Loved, from her album, I Still Want to Share. A song that didn't just challenge her as a songwriter, but also as a person navigating love, longing, and responsibility. Unlike many of her other songs, this one had a clear emotional trajectory from the start. It was written for someone close to her, and that made the process delicate. It wasn't just about expression, but about making sure the song told the truth in a way that she could stand by. Balancing honesty with care was a challenge, especially when the emotions behind it were so raw. The song evolved as she questioned what it meant to love someone who might never love you in the way that you need. It started with frustration, but ended with something much deeper. A realization that both she and the person it was written about were searching for the same kind of love, even if they couldn't give it to each other. And in that way, it became more than a personal reckoning. It became a song about the universal longing to be truly seen. The song also came together in an unusual way. It was written while she was already recording the album, a rare instance where she knew, even in the moment of writing, that it belonged on the record. And in the end, it wasn't just another track, it became a defining piece of the album's central themes. Make sure to stay tuned to hear How Do You Want to Be Loved in full at the end of this episode, but before that, here's my conversation with Sophie.
I picked a song called How Do You Want to Be Loved because it was a difficult song to write. It was a song that I kind of wrote with an intention behind it. It was quite a mammoth thing that I wanted it to do. And as songwriting always does, it kind of surprised me and did, something different and more. But yeah, it was a song that I wrote in a slightly different way to other songs, in a few ways.
So how was that creative process different to your normal writing methods?
Well, in some ways it wasn't, but in other ways, it was probably one of those songs. It was very, very much about this one person and this one, deep, clear feeling of frustration and longing and heartbreak. It felt like there was a very clear trajectory of emotion, and normally I find with most of my songs there's a few different things going on. This one I knew exactly where it was going and who it was about, and in that way I knew I had to be careful from the start. It's about someone close to me in my family, and I wanted the song to have a positive impact. Not necessarily a need for them to hear it, but I needed it to act responsibly. That was a lot to keep in mind while writing, while trying to just let myself honor what needed to come out. So it was sort of a constant balancing act of lyrics coming out and then trying to figure out whether to temper them or not, or be less explicit or more explicit, or let anger come through or try and reason it down. And I think, I had to do some thinking and balancing in a slightly more responsible way. I don't know. Yeah, it was an odd one.
When you were writing the song, did you want it to remain ambiguous, or did you always know that probably that person it's about was going to work out it was about them?
I tried not to worry too much about that. I think I knew that they would end up hearing it one way or another. I knew that I'd probably have to send it to them, before releasing it. So that wasn't so much the issue, so much as if I did send it to them, would I feel like I could stand by the song, and did I feel like it was truthful and that it would remain truthful? That's a really hard job for a song to do, I think. I want to say you can never really know whether a song is going to ring true for you right now and ring true for you to some extent later on, because it always kind of won't, but hopefully it kind of does also in some way. And I think I'm happy to say that having had to reconnect with the song, because I've released it now as a single and had to talk about it and explain it in some interviews and stuff, I do feel like it's still teaching me some things, and that is actually more than I thought I was going to get from it. So I'm happy. I'm happy with it.
You think that it's had a positive impact on your relationship with that person? Or even your maybe internalization of how you were thinking about that person?
It's had a positive impact on how I understand my relationship with that person. It has helped me connect elements and themes in the album as a whole. I mean, another slightly unusual thing about it was also the only song that I wrote. I think I was about a verse in, and I realised that it was definitely relevant to the album. But I'd already started recording the album when I wrote it. We were about a month in. We're just, not solidly recording, but just a couple of sessions here and there. And I started writing it, and I realised that it linked back to a lot of the things that other songs touched upon, and that I need to put it on there. And so I ended up writing a lot of it knowing it was going to go on the album, and I don't think I had that with any other songs. The other songs, they just got written, and then I thought, yeah, I think that needs to be on that. It's really helped me understand other songs and the wider trajectory of how I love people and why. And also like responsibility and how to take it, and how I think it's really easy when loving other people is painful to assign the power to somebody else and be like, this person is causing me pain, or I'm struggling in this relationship because of this, that and the other. But actually, I think what I didn't realise the song was teaching me when I wrote it was that this person and myself were actually in exactly the same boat. I was finding it so painful, the relationship. And then over time, I've realised that I think they were finding it really painful also in just a different way. And that neither of us were able to give each other what the other person needed, and we were both doing our best. I find it interesting that I think the song emerged from a lot of anger, yet I've also managed to understand that from it somehow.
What did they say when they first heard the song?
Just to be honest, they haven't really commented specifically on it, and that's totally fine. I had to go through a really, really nerve-wracking process of telling them that some of the songs on my album touched upon that relationship, and I was absolutely shitting myself to have to tell that to them, because I thought it would ruin our relationship, but actually they really surprised me, and they've been very open and kind and generous about their role in the making of my album, and about the music as well, which I think was part of a source of some of that pain, was them not really understanding something about my need to do this. The only thing they've said directly about the song is that they really like it. Which I find wild.
It's an expression of honesty, and maybe it helped them understand the relationship and that element of love in another way, just like it did for you as well.
Maybe. I think we all really like to think that, but I think I've learnt from this relationship not to go expecting that, and also I think you're just nobody, not even the person you might write songs about, is gonna hear your song in the way that you hear it, or pick up on the things that you think are clear, are like they're gonna know that line's about them. And I think a lot of the time they will just hear what they want to hear and not hear anything else, because that's how everybody listens to music as well. I think it's amazing what some people pick up on that you just don't expect, or you're like, but this is the best line in the song. Everyone's going to love this line, and actually, you never know if they do.
I was speaking to a buddy about this the other day, and they had written a song about their partner, and it's like a really lovely song about their partner, and I knew it was about them because I remember when he played me early demos and stuff, and then he like played it like kind of ambiguously, didn't purposely go out and say this is about you. He played the song, and the first thing she commented on it was like, wicked guitar solo. He's like, nothing else you took from that? Like, my undying love for you, possibly? Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the first thing that she noticed. I'm always super interested in the origins of a song. So maybe you could take us back to that like very first writing session. When did you realise that this needed to be on the album, that this is something that you wanted to put out, and I guess given the nature of the song as well, something you wanted to address through your music?
I started writing it, I think it was Christmas Eve 2 years ago, or maybe it was Boxing Day, but it was that Christmas time. And I actually just before this session, I went back and looked back at my journal from that time, which I've done a bit during the album making process. It's very interesting. You also sort of can misremember how you started writing songs and kind of have like a memory that's formed, and then you go back and look at the journal and you're like, oh, I was going through all of this stuff. I've totally erased that from my memory. The question, how do you want to be loved, came just through some like sort of free writing, and that kept coming up as I was trying to figure out what this person wanted from me, and found this really simple little chord progression. I think I normally write in the same key. I should really probably try and expand from that. But I was sort of going around that, and the phrase, how do you want to be loved, the melody came very easily. And then I found myself writing the first verse, which starts, a glimpse in the mist, you catch the last worm and chew it up for us. That beginning of the song came from I just really wanted to write a song that would say, look, I love you. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that I could see that they were doing their best, and I wanted to acknowledge all that they had done for me. So I kind of had this picture of, a bird outside my window feeding chicks. And then actually later on, I remember that around that time I read a poem by Mary Oliver. It sort of describes something really similar, of chicks chirping, like dying for food, and they're just so hungry and they just want food and they don't know where it's coming from, I think was one of the lines, but they just keep shouting more and more. I think as soon as I wrote that line, I knew what it was about and what I wanted it to do, and then as I went through the writing of the song, I had to think more about how to say some things and how much anger to let through. As the song ended, once I came to the outro, I sort of ended up rounding off that image. The words, head back, mouth in the air. I never thought I'd find you here. Head back, mouth in the air. I don't know what I have to share. It kind of became a full circle. You're actually also just, are looking for the same kind of love, and neither of us can give it to each other. It doesn't really exist, this pure, unconditional, generous love with no strings or need attached.
Were there any particular parts of the song that were very hard to finalise?
Yeah, there were some really niggly lyrics. There was a line in the first verse. I couldn't find the words for a place to start. For ages, I came up with them just before going into the studio. I had to just sit down and hack it out. But I had all kinds of not good enough place fillers for that. And a line that I had to think about a lot was in the last verse, the stretch of the wing, the broken things, the lungs you gave me filling. I wanted to ask who gave you the glass and why it keeps on spilling. That line, I had to just let myself say that. I kept trying to be like, that's too much. I wanted to use that space to open up my heart and be more generous, but I actually it kept feeling not true. So I just had to let myself keep that line and like spit the word spilling. Those were the niggly ones. I think most of the rest came fairly easily.
We finish all these interviews with the same question, and it comes from this place where a band I really like wrote a new album. Everyone was going on about how great that album was. I downloaded that album, I was listening to it on a flight. The main song everyone was like kind of going on about, I just thought was really bad, and I was really disappointed. And then I heard an interview of the lead singer talking about what that song meant, and he was picking up on these very specific nuances in the lyrics, in the dynamics of his voice and the performance, and it became my favourite song of theirs once I had that context and understanding of what it meant to them. Our audience are about to hear a stripped back version of your track. Is there anything you want them to specifically look out for or listen for that's going to change the way they experience it?
I find myself going towards the outro in answer to that. For me, I feel like in some ways it's the most important part of the song. And I find outros so interesting, is they're one of my favourite things to write. And you think you're writing this song and you start it and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you write the chorus and you're like, oh yeah. And then you're like, oh, I thought it was good then. And then actually have no idea what it's really about until you conclude it, because that shapes everything that came before. And for me, the outro, those lines, and then there's the line, I don't know what I have to share, for me ended up defining in a way what the whole rest of the album was, because the first song I wrote for that album was a song called I Still Want to Share, which I wrote like 4 or 5 years ago. The outro is really just, it feels to me like humility. It's the most loving part of the song. It's like everything sinks back down. To me, it feels like nestling in the soil with another animal. And it's usually a moment where I feel all the things I wanted to feel when I set out to write the song, and I didn't know how I was going to get there, but what it really took was to just see this other person in their most vulnerable state as another, little chick gasping for food. I think without that, the song is like catchy and good, but this is how it all gains its true meaning. I wrote that line, I don't know what I have to share, having already written, started recording the album, and it really excited me to be able to make a choice of that kind, as I find most of the rest of the album making process is there's obviously a lot of choice, but what you really want to be doing is just like following an energy or following an intent, an instinct. But it felt powerful to be able to balance out I still want to share with I don't know how or what I have, and to let those lines kind of cancel each other out. Because what I want the whole album to do, actually, I think, is acknowledge that, we long for so much from other people, and we have to accept that we can't expect it, and that there's such a heartbreaking beauty in our perpetual longing and pain, and that it is just a fact of life, and that it's beautiful that we continue to dream and aspire to being truly loved for who we really are, and it's equally beautiful that it's impossible. In that sense, I'm proud of those lines. In some way, I feel like they're the most important lines in the whole album. Yeah.
A glimpse in the mist, you catch the last worm and chew it up for us. You give me the gift, a place to stir the tongue you gave to feed the heart. The name of the kiss, the kind of bliss of love becoming learning. But here on the bronze, you crack the heart and mold it in its turning out. How do you wanna be loved? Wanna be loved? How do you wanna be loved? Wanna be loved? The stretch of the wing, the broken things, the lungs you gave me filling. I wanted to ask who gave you the glass and why it keeps on spilling and how do you wanna be loved? Wanna be loved? How do you wanna be loved? Wanna be loved? How do you wanna be loved? Wanna be loved? How do you wanna be loved? Wanna be head back, mouth in the air. I never thought I'd find you here. Head back, mouth in the air. Head back, mouth in the air. I don't know what I have to share. Head back, mouth in the air.
Thanks to Sophie Jamieson for coming on the show. Make sure to subscribe and follow The Hardest Part wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all other major platforms. The Hardest Part is mixed and produced by myself. Our engineering team is Max Walker and Chris Goldsmith. Our creative team is Callum Baker and Giovanni Almonte. And this episode was recorded at the Thin White Duke Studios in London, Soho. Thanks for tuning in.